This is your last call for an appetizer before we get started, otherwise, for dessert afterwards. Okay. Well, I am so thankful, Diane, for you and for you being willing to share your story with us today. She gave me her book for Christmas, and I read it, and I was just really in awe. And so I asked her if she'd come and talk to you about her book. If anybody has a phone with them, if you'd please turn your phone down or off. And if you do need to take a call, please excuse yourself to taking it out in the hallway. She's got some friends here, and Brother Curtis is recording. If anybody does not want to be recorded, speak now or forever hold your peace. If you don't want to be recorded, he will just focus on her, but if everybody's okay, he would scan the crowd. Okie dokie. I turn it over to you. Okay. All right. Stretch it. Okay.
Well, everybody know me. Diane. These are my friends from my church. And they came home. Will they come home?
I've never dealt with a squeaky microphone before, so we have to make sure that it's spaced out, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You do it at my
He
Yeah.
knows
church.
what he's doing.
Yeah, you do that at
Okay.
church.
What are we doing wrong?
You might have something on your neck that's interfering with the mic.
Yeah.
Independent?
All of them take one.
Yeah.
It's like the aliens are being called.
Okay, there you go. Now I can hear you. Yeah. I gave Katie and Valerie my book for Christmas. I didn't know she was gonna do this to me. But anyway, she wanted me to not really tell what was in the book, but tell why I wrote the book. Yeah. Okay. I am a victim of incest. It started when my parents separated, and I was 4 years old, and I went to live with my grandmother. We ended up staying with some relatives that I didn't know. They were on my dad's side. They were on my dad's side. I didn't know them, you know. My mother gave me and my 3 sisters to my grandmother, and my dad wasn't there all the time. He was, you know, still young and was busy doing his life. But my grandmother did the best that she could, you know. So she was older, and it was 4 of us. So the baby was 10 months old. I was 4. It was a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 10-month-old. So she asked my cousin, people who we had never known, she had to be about 12 or 14, to walk me to school because, you know, you couldn't go to school when you're 4 if your birthday's going to be before December the 2nd. So I started kindergarten. And so we didn't live far from them, and I used to go up to their house and stay until it was time to go to school. Well, I don't know, something had to happen to her for her to act like that, you know. And, you know, she would take me in the room and say, you know, how incest goes and do things, you know. Well, you know, that went on for years. And then we moved to Cabrini Green. That's a whole nother story. That's book number 2. You've heard of Cabrini Green, I'm sure. And we moved to Cabrini Green, and the boy cousin, then he started. Well, my grandmother caught him. She never said anything. I didn't know if I was good or bad, you know, because she never, you know, said anything, but I know there was something wrong with that, and, you know, it was painful, awful, everything, you know. And so I went around years, you know, with all of this going on. But what happened sometimes to young girls and what happened to me, I became very promiscuous. I don't know that spirit just like did something, you know, and I became very promiscuous. And by the time I was 16, I had my daughter. And I had my daughter, you know. And so, as the years went on, you know, I never knew what all of that was, but then by the time I got older, I think I was like 22 or something like that, I met the Lord. And we went to an event in Whitewater, Wisconsin, I think that's where it was. And you know, sometimes you think, well, who else has this story, you know, because, you know, you ain't talking to nobody, you know, about this, none of that stuff. So, when we went to this event, it was a place called the Sanctuary. And the lady had all of these rooms fixed up, and you could go and rest and, you know, stuff like that. So, she had a library in the place, the school. I gave it to her, she had fixed up different rooms, and, you know, she had a library downstairs. So I went downstairs to the library, and I found this book by Joyce Myers. And this book, you know, kind of reached out at me, and it said, receive emotional healing. So I said, what is all this about? But I don't know if any of you all know who Joyce Myers is. Anybody know who she is? You know who Joyce Myers is? She's a pastor. She's on TBN quite a bit. And in this book, she began to share her story. And I was thinking to myself, that's my story. Her dad abused her for years, you know, and it started when she was a little girl. Her story's in this book. And she told her mom, but her mom, you know, did nothing about it. And so, anyway, the mom finally caught him. You know, sometimes they get caught. When she caught him, she still didn't do anything. And she told Joyce after years that she didn't say anything because she didn't want the neighborhood to know and, you know, all of that other kind of stuff, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, she never said anything about it. But her story was, she had to walk in forgiveness. And she ended up taking care of this man till he passed away. You know, she really had a story with that thing. And that story blessed me so much, you know, because I didn't know at that time nobody else that was going through nothing like this. You know, it was, you know, just silent with me because I didn't know. Well, and I got to my church and everything, and the women began to pray for me because I discovered what it was by then. And we used to have a group that we would get together called Women of Honor. And the next thing you know, there was a few girls in the church that began to speak and tell about this thing that was happening to them. And, you know, we all just, you know, rallied around each other and supported each other. Well, I come here, as I told you, from Chicago. I had heard about Aurora in 1985. And, you know, for me, it was like someplace like, what is Aurora, Illinois, you know? I was like, where is that? It was these two little girls lived on my block. And they would always be so happy they were coming out here to be with their younger sister, their older sister, because she had got married and moved out here, you know. So I was like, where in the world is Aurora, you know? But then what happened was, my sister in 1980, she moved out here. And she kept saying, Diane, you ought to move out here. I said, I'm not moving in that town, you know. I'm from the city. I didn't, you know, when I came to visit her, I seen all these cornfields. I don't even think the mall was here. I'm not sure if anybody knows if the mall was here yet. But on New York Street was just all these cornfields, and I was just not accustomed to all of that. People sitting on the street selling corn. So no, I'm not coming out there. Well, 1990, my daughter got grown, and she moved here in Aurora with my 3 grandchildren. Well, that changed my thoughts, And I came out here in 1989. I seen so much, in Chicago. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to start the ministry because of the things that I seen, and it's kind of other kind of story. I seen young girls prostituting, all kind of things. So I wanted to help them because I figured if it helped, I helped them, it helped me. But that's not where God wanted me to get it started at. I didn't want to come here. I fought real hard not to come here. And so I finally made it. Well, being here, I almost felt like an investigator. All of a sudden, here's all this stuff opened up, because first it seemed like this was just that suburb place that didn't have no problems. And the first thing that happened was January of 1990, my nephew got killed by the gangs. And that was traumatic, But then I started just seeing what was happening here. And I thought to myself, what? All of this is going on in this city? And I would look at the Beacon News, and one day I got the story about a school out here called Washington. And I was the type of person at the time, I wanted to always get involved and help people. And this was in 2003. And it was in the Beacon News. And it was talking about the school called Washington with 5th graders there. It's Washington Middle School. And these ladies were wanting to talk to these girls about safe touches. And they were ranging from the ages of 12 to 13 years old. And, all of them started to come forth and give their stories, It was like, wow. So to look up the word incest, what is incest? It's sexual intercourse between persons too closely related to marry legally. And so at that moment, I knew I had to get involved. I just wanted to just be involved in what was happening to help other people get healed. Well, when I got here to this building, and I had surgeries and stuff like that, and I started telling God, I'm too old. Now that's how I felt. It's like, well, I'm too old to, run to these events like I used to run to them and be at this and trying to help with this and trying to help with that. And when I moved here, the first Christmas I moved here in August. The first Christmas, Katie had the thing in the hallway for us to buy gifts for the North Aurora Mothers, whatever you call it, like Mothers Club. And I was thinking to myself, well, what's that? So anyway, when we got the gifts and everything, and then I began to visit North Aurora's Mothers Club and get involved, And so that was the first thing that I did when I got here, because they have just young women, with problems, and I wanted to be there for young women. That's the ministry I think that I'm called to help young women. And it got to the point where, I just couldn't do all of that anymore, I also got involved in a ministry for young women. It was called the War Chest. It was in Naperville. And these people at the war chest. I mean, they would literally go in and, you know, to these places where they would have these young girls pole dancing and everything. They, you know, they snatch them up, you know. Yeah, but it just got now that, you know, I'm like, I can't do all of this kind of stuff anymore, and I don't have no car, you know. So, 2019, and what had happened was, between the year of 1985 up into 2019, I would talk to people, they would say, you should write a book. I said, write a book? Book? And I was thinking, no, you know, I would talk to them, girl, you should write a book. I'm like, no, I can't write a book. But my pastor, one of them, Apostle John Eckhart, he was at a meeting, and he said, some of you are going to write books you never dreamed of. It's 2019 then, I'm like, oh wow, he talking to me now. And I went home and I said, well, God, I don't know what I would write about, you know, because, you know, I could have wrote about 2 or 3 different things, you know. He said, this plastic container that you have here, it has 30 years of ministry and just things that I've given you, you know, and that's what you want to write about. And so I was like, okay, well, see this nice lady here, right here. She, I'm not good at computers and typing, so I started bothering her. And I told her, I said, look, can you help me with this book? Well, was it rough? It was kind of rough, because I didn't know too much what I was doing no way. But anyway, we got the book there. But when I wrote the book, I wanted to title it The Journey to the Assignment. You know, I understood assignments from looking at Mike Murdoch, and he would always talk about what your assignment is, you know. So I wanted to call it The Journey to the Assignment. Well, the publisher, he didn't want to call it Journey to the Assignment, so we went back and forth about it, you know. And he said, Miss Diane, he said, that title fits the books better. So I went on with the title, you know, that he wanted me to go along with, you know. And at first, I really didn't want him as a publisher. He's a young man, and I wanted a lady publisher, so I fought with him for a long time. I didn't want him to be my publisher. I kept trying to get this lady, and she never show up, you know. So anyway, he ended up being my publisher, and that's how the title came about. I was a little, you know, about the title being on the front there, but he said, this is the title. I said, okay, we'll go with it, you know. And so there it is. Since I wrote this book, there were times that I felt like, did I write the right thing? And, you know, I go to the doctor and I go to different places and stuff. So it's this young girl, a very pretty girl. She looks happy all the time. She has 3 children and a husband. So I told the girl, I finished my book. She said, yeah. She said, I'm going to have to read it. And I looked at her, I said, no, you don't need my book. That's what I thought to myself. I said, you don't need my book. I said, my book is called Surviving Sexual Sin. She got up, she closed the door to her office, and she told me, she said, my dad's having surgery today. She said, and I hope he dies on the operating table. And right then and there, I could hear him. I said, you quit trying to discern and say who don't need this book. And it's just been, like, since then, just testimony of young people coming forth, you know, talking about what happened to them. I'm just sometimes overwhelmed, you know, the stories that I get, you know. So that's why I wrote the book. And that's about all I got to really say about the book, because she told me to explain why I wrote it. So now you all know why I wrote it. And and I hope that this book gets to the right places and ministers to the right people. Joyce Myers, I finally heard about human trafficking. And I'm sure everybody in the room probably heard about human trafficking. I saw a movie in 2004. I thought it was just something to entertain you. You know, movies, but it's real. Women are coming up missing. I've known women that have came up missing. I wouldn't say the name, but one of the people that her niece came up missing, she used to be employed here. And her sister came and told me, said, Miss Diane, my daughter's missing. And I'm like, oh my goodness, well, of course they found her, and she was dead, you know. But human trafficking is one of the other things that's just really something that's just, you know, heavy for me. To see these young women, and you know, certain things happen that give you assignments. When I think about, do any of you all know who Adam Walsh is?
Yeah.
Adam Walsh's son came up missing. He was in the grocery store with his mom. He asked him to look at some toys or something, and somebody snatched him and took him. Well, they eventually found his head floating down the river, but they never found the rest of him. You know, you hear what happens is when something happens, it opens up your heart and you get involved. I know y'all have heard of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. You know, somebody's child, you know, got killed. It opens you up where you get the compassion going. You know. But I'm thinking about years ago, you know, I think we saw it. It was always on milk cartons. People coming up missing all the time. You know, it was years ago. All these people on the milk cartons, young women and all this kind of stuff. Well, now, when we get our sale paper, on the back of the sale paper, you see all these young babies, they're missing, you know, and I look at the sale papers, I pray, I cut them out. Well, Joyce Myers, to get back to her real quick, she met this pastor, and he went over to Moldova. I forget what the other part of that is, but anyway, there was this foster home in Moldova, and they let you stay there when you get the age of 18. They would give you $30 and put you out on the street. You know, I put this in my book, of course. It's the only thing I'm talking about that's in the book. Well, there was one young lady, her name was Stella. And Stella had got the AIDS virus from being, you know, involved like that. But there was so many women, they said over 450,000 women came up missing in Moldova. And what they would do, they would use them up, and when they would use them up, they just toss them in the dumpsters, you know. So this man, he was a pastor, he had a heart for that thing, so he went over there and he turned this this foster place into a place for young women, you know, and it's you know, doing well. When he went away and he came back, and of course Stella was dead, you know, and thrown over in the dumpster and everything. My desire was, when I was younger, I really wanted me a place, you know, for this thing. I thought about naming it Agape Outreach. The word agape means love under no kind of condition. I didn't care what kind of trouble you were in. Just come, you know what I'm saying, so I could help you. It was so hard. I fought, and the ground here was so tough, I could never get this house that I wanted to get to house these young women, you know. They had other agencies out here. I paid attention to all the agencies, and they were, you know, helping young women, but mine was going to be a kind of different place than what they had. So that never was successful. It never happened for me, and I got old now. So I'm not really looking for it like I was looking for it. But if this is the way he wants me to reach out, because I still have 2 more books to write. This is how I will reach out at this time. But I'm praying and I'm looking for, what would I call this? Somebody someone younger to start doing the footwork. You know, I'll work with her and she do the footwork and we work together and still work on this thing. But I don't know if I'll be able to work on it like I did when I was 40. I came here when I was 40. So this is why I wrote this book. And Katie wanted me to share it, so there it is. I don't know if this is a thing for questions or something, I don't know, but anyway, there's the book. They're $14.99. I don't know if anyone wants to purchase one. And thank you for listening.
Thank you for writing it.
Huh?
And thank you for writing it. Bring it out to the open. I
Yeah.
think that's important.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is. Yeah, it is. Where's Kate going? What
Thank you.
else?
Thank
And
you.
I brought a big old apple pie, just enjoy it. That you read about that, you know, this thing has happened to, this incest thing. And it was just some of the things, you know, it's like, wow. Then you, of course, then you think to yourself, you're not alone, you know, that, you know, it's happening, you know.
To all the women that are, that, I don't know, maybe even in this room that have experienced it, but maybe not saying nothing or for whatever reason, it's okay to say it. It's okay to allow God to heal you. It's okay because it wasn't your fault. So you don't have to continue to live in bondage or in prison like it was your fault because it wasn't. So it happened to me with my father, so I just wanted to say.
Anything else, Ms. Katie? Well, you're welcome to apple pie. I would have made you some coffee, but I'm not a good coffee. I'm not a real good coffee person. So you don't get coffee with it. You know. Yeah. I was trying to find Miss Bonnie because she makes good coffee with ladies, but I didn't find her.
It's all right. We gave all the coffee away there.